Welcome to Between Humans and Psychology. And my name's Guthrie. I'm here with Susan. Hello.
Hello, you said that wrong.
Oops.
You said the intersection between humans and psychology.
I meant technology.
Yes, we got the ologies mixed up.
Pretty close though.
How are you today, Guthrie?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
There's there's lots going on. Always lots going on.
Yeah.
We are live, of course. I hope this is hope this is streaming to all of our places.
All of our sources, all of our places.
So today we're going to pick up where we left off. Last time we did a lot about the UX of AR and VR, and we did not have enough time to cover all the wonderful things that we would have liked to cover. So I said there was going to be part 2. This is a part 2.
This is part 2.
This part 2 is about more than just headsets and the actual application of stuff. And we're going to go up a little bit further into maybe the software side, the user experience of some of the software things.
Okay.
Much like we said last time, there is there's the 5-year, and then there's the 10-year, right? And then there's the 40-year. So we understand that some of the nitpicks are short-term nitpicks, right? So in 40 years, it certainly won't be an issue. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, the process of these things gets cleaned up. And so we don't want to say that the limitation of the technology is exclusive to, I don't know, what it is currently right now.
Okay.
Right. Still, right? Still, you still have the realities of what's happening today.
But it would be nice
and the near future.
Right. But it would be nice to keep in mind. I mean, hopefully, as we move forward, the things that we and others identify as, UX, either wish list or UX issues, identifying them now will help, hopefully. Because sometimes there are technologies that they just, organizations and companies work on them and move them forward, but not necessarily moving it forward from a UX point of view. So I always think it's good to think about the UX of everything, but that's just my particular lens I'm always from. But, so anyway, yeah, I'm curious as to where you want to dive in here for this part 2. And let me also mention that since we are live, if people are watching us live, and if you have questions or comments, feel free to type them into the chat.
So so here's how I sort of want to proceed.
Okay. Go ahead.
One of the other problems, I think, that some of these, what is affectionately, disparagingly, I'm not entirely sure. It's either with affection or disparage. Have you heard of Web 3.0?
Well, sure. But, I remember when the term Web 2.0 came out.
Okay. So let's see. This will be your quiz.
I'm going to flunk this quiz.
Can you do Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and then Web 3.0 according to the zeitgeist?
No. There, I answered the question.
How about Web 1.0?
Well, Web 1.0.
I'm not saying this is smart. I'm just, these are all
when the web, when the whole internet first came out. I don't know. It depends. It is interesting. It depends on where you want to make these delineations, right? I mean, you ask these questions, and then I end up having to show how very ancient I am by the answers I give. So I remember when the internet first came out, and it was just this idea that you could communicate with people, through your computer was just amazing. I think that's Web 1.0, but then that would take it all the way back to bulletin boards, like pre websites. Maybe that's not what you mean.
Well, maybe you could have 1.1 and 1.2 and
Yeah, yeah.
1.5.
So in the web 1.0, we got used to communicating with other people online and also in creating these things called web pages to show information, because initially it was primarily information and a little bit of images. You
Mhm.
certainly didn't couldn't do video. You couldn't do what we're doing right now. So that's what I think of as Web 1.0.
And I should say the old their old the old Pizza Hut website.
All the old websites,
It's
they're all
like
beautiful.
we're on the anyways, we're on the web. Okay, so that's one web. Then you had Web 2.0, which is all the social media stuff. We all know about that. This is moving right along. We don't have to talk about this. And then we finally get to uh, what is now being coined Web 3.0, which
All
is
right,
some
what is that?
sort. Well, it's part Silicon Valley hype, part metaverse, part AR, part VR, part crypto. Um, something. It's I guess it's a little vague. I'm sure there are people who have better interpretations um, than I do. So that's the kind of the big overview of it is that it will, much like social media changed many things, it will also sort of change many things. Um, I think it is important to realize a little bit the sense. I mean, things happened really quick in the social media landscape, but it still took like a decade. It was not.
For it to really become an established
Hmm.
part of online culture, you mean?
Yes, yes. Um, I mean, things are accelerating, but I'm not entirely sure that they'll zoom through overnight. And I think you can take a lot of lessons, of course, from the Web 2.0. There was, if you go back and you read the articles from then and you listen to the interviews from back then, there was a I don't know. The people were saying what it was going to be like and the transformation it was going to bring. There's a lot of things about how it's like democracy and the social the town square and everyone will have this free thing of ideas and your friend group won't be your friend group anymore. You'll find people around the world and that'll be your friend group, and you'll stay instantly connected and you'll never be alone, and on and on and on and on and on. And
Yeah, yeah, it is,
you remember because you remember this.
I do. And it is just such a human thing to imagine what the newest tool is going to do for us as a species, on the planet, and then the reality of what the tool does. So, for instance, what you just mentioned, it's going to connect us, right? No one will have to be alone anymore. And then we have all this research that comes out that says about how being online makes you feel alone, right? Or the idea that you're going to be connected with people in a new community that you wouldn't have otherwise. And now we find out that connecting online creates even more intense bubbles where you talk less and less to other to people who aren't like you, and you really become insular and just communicating with people who share the same point of view you do. So the reality of the especially if we're talking about social interactions, the reality of what the technology does is really different than what we think it will do. And that's I just see that repeated over and over and over. Whatever tool, there's just like, I guess there's two. Can we have, Susan Weinschenk axioms or something? You know, I didn't invent this, I don't think, but I'll just say one one thing we should learn from history is that whatever tools exist in the world, whether technology or any other kind of tool, if there's a way to use it in a social interactive way, we will push it to the that to we will make that happen. That's one axiom. And the other is, and then once we start doing that and we start predicting what this means and how this will impact us, we'll be wrong. Those are like the two things we should learn from history, and yet I'm not sure we learn those lessons.
Right. So part of the there's a nostalgia for the Web 1.0.
There is?
Oh my god, huge
Who's
nostalgia.
nostalgia? This is like the nostalgia for LP records.
Probably.
Because those of us who lived through these previous technologies just go, why would you want to? Why do you want to go back to records and you scratch them and then they don't sound good anymore? And like what? There's a whole supply chain backup about a vinyl. I don't know if you know this, and what, Adele ordered 500,000 copies of her latest album as an LP, and now no one else can get their LPs made because just they're still using the machines from the 1950s,
Yeah.
and they
There's not
can't,
they don't have the
they
machine
can't
to make them the new
they
machines. I
can't
understand.
run them that hard, and they don't have enough of the literal vinyl. Anyway, why would you want to go back to what is the nostalgia for 1.0? In what way? I don't
So
understand that.
it's in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
mostly cultural and aesthetically.
this
We're
sounds
getting a little far afield,
exactly
but that's
like the
okay.
LP.
Yep, yep. No,
What
it's
do
the same
you
thing.
mean? What do you mean culturally and
Pixelated
aesthetically?
graphics,
Oh, come
a lot of
on.
text,
I can't handle it.
nothing. It wasn't slick. But
Well,
there's also
I guess that's true. Yeah, it
but
wasn't
there's
slick,
also a
but it was
nostalgia
bad.
for how non-corporate it was. It wasn't hyper corporate. Not everything was,
Branded in a corporate
branded, and
way.
there was, even the companies who were doing stuff on the web, it was just like it just felt much more authentic, like Pizza Hut was like, "Hey, we have a website." And now every big company, it's all the marketing team has put together a thing with this,
Don't
and it's
disparage marketing teams. They hire us. That's our clients.
well, but marketing teams are really, really good at making money, right? Like
Well, that's it. Well, I
they do
guess.
what they are designed to do very, very, very well, which is
I
to
did not.
grow,
Okay, I
get
did
money.
not know. Thank you for teaching me something new today. I did not know that there was a nostalgia for 1.0.
Huge, very big, very big. Um, there's music genres based on it. There are lots of very popular
Wait a minute, a
games.
minute. There's music genres based on Web 1.0?
And the time, yes, because back in the day, as you know, you were a music composer. Um, you
I
couldn't you
wasn't
can't,
composing back then, though.
fine, but there was a limited amount of computer
Oh,
power,
oh, I see what you mean.
so you
Yeah.
just had to do simple sine wave MIDI
Well,
stuff.
you had to do live musicians to
No, no, no,
record.
not on the internet. Right? Because you had to do MIDI based because there
Yes.
wasn't enough. You couldn't download a MP3. It
Okay.
was too
Yeah.
big, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Anyways, so
Yeah.
okay, and I do wonder if once we sort of hit Web 3.0, if there will be sort of a nostalgia in
For
15 years,
2.0?
but like the glorification of 2.0. So like
Mm.
right when social media started, I mean, there were years of my life where Facebook was so cool, and everyone I knew was posting all about their entire lives on it, and it was really fun. And you would get home and you would check it, and there would be people
That's
commenting
true.
and saying
There
stuff.
was an excitement.
it was so fun. And then it got really weird and corporate and addy, and everyone's grandparents got on, and then it died, and blah blah blah, and then the next thing kind of takes over. But even though the next thing took over, um, the thing that takes over is now still hyper corporate, hyper profit oriented in a way that you know.
Well, not
Something about MySpace.
necessarily. Not
Something about MySpace.
necessarily.
Well, okay, so this is we're like I said, we're
Go
getting a
ahead. All
little
right.
we're
So
getting a little
maybe
far
it's
afield.
all right. So maybe at some point we will long for the days when everyone was in their own bubble. I don't know if we're going to long for that, but but like I said before, we're always wrong. So, all right, I'll give you that much. All right.
There seems to be a really glorification for
All
things
right.
in the
So what's
past.
3.0?
Well, we don't really know, right? We didn't really know what 2.0 is going to look like. We don't really know exactly what 3.0 is going to look like, but a lot of
Is
people
Do you think though that is Meta saying that 3.0 is going to be the metaverse?
that is that
That's what
is
they're saying.
that's I don't I don't want to put words in their mouth specifically, but companies like them,
They're
that's sort of the, like I said, the zeitgeist, the
right,
hot
right,
word on the
right,
buzzwords.
right.
So there are, I just think there are a couple fundamental problems
Okay.
with
What
this,
are they?
because we like to talk about mental models, right?
Yes.
I think Web 2.0 had some really good mental models.
Well, okay. You want
Um,
to just give an example of what you mean by that?
so if I come to you and I say, how do I explain a driverless car? Okay, well, it's a car, except a computer is doing the driving.
Okay.
Okay. Even if I don't understand the technology and I don't get it, it's a very simple mental model. It's exactly the same as a car, except instead of a human, there's a computer driving.
Okay. All right.
Computers can do human tasks. I know what goes on.
Okay.
Web 2.0, I mean, the original internet was really hard. Web 1.0, people could not
It was a
understand.
very difficult mental model, right? It's like,
Like, what is
what
it?
is this?
It's cyberspace. It's like a place, but it's virtual. And you have all the movies from the 90s where people are trying to explain the software programmers, but they're going into the internet and stuff,
Yeah.
because people just it was a really, really hard
We
mental
didn't have a
model.
mental model for it, right?
So then 2.0 came along, and I think 2.0 was pretty easy. Uh, like what is, sort of what's MySpace? Well, it's a bulletin board where you post stuff, and then all your friends can look at your board. Or Facebook. It's like a Rolodex. If anyone knows what a Rolodex is, we're gonna have to use a newer term than Rolodex, but
I know what a
contact
roll.
list.
I know what a Rolodex
Maybe
is.
is Rolodex an American centric term?
I
If
don't
people
know.
if
I don't
anyone
know.
is watching, if you can tell us if people in Europe use the term
Or
Rolodex,
Asia.
yeah,
Well,
anywhere
nobody
else.
uses the term Rolodex unless they're,
I just used it.
over. Oh, yeah, that's true. You did use it. Okay.
But maybe that's like a brand name. Maybe there's like some sort of contact list. So yeah,
Okay.
Facebook, right? It's a contact list, and you just connect with all your friends in your life, and then you can talk to them. Except you talk to them, instead of writing them a letter, you write them a message
Okay.
electronically.
Yeah. I think the mental model wasn't too bad.
Yeah, even Twitter, which doesn't have a good allegory in real life, at least it was simple. You write out a couple characters, and you send it out, and then anyone can see anything you write. It's new, but it's not hard, I don't think,
It was
necessarily.
considered. It was. It was considered weird. The
It's
mental
considered
model,
weird, but
but you could
people
understand the mental
understand it.
model. Yeah.
So
We.
my question
Yeah.
to you then is, can you
Yes.
explain to me what like an NFT is? Can anyone really explain what I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
can do
think,
a
yeah,
good job.
no, this is interesting. I think we are getting to some technologies that where we don't have mental models, and we don't know how to describe. We struggle to describe the mental model, or we just struggle to describe some of these things because we don't have a good shared mental model. And that would include, like, crypto, NFTs, metaverse. It's like you start to try and describe them and you feel like you're stumbling around. So I
Well,
agree with you.
well, hold on.
What?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. We have someone here. Um, from they use the word Rolodex. Apparently, it's not just a U.S. thing, so that's
Okay, good.
fantastic. Um, so the dangers of mental models, I think, may cause pitfalls for this. Um, the assumptions about what it does and what it's capable of is sort of interesting. I think the metaverse is the easiest mental model. It's just like real life, except it's virtual. So anything you would do in real life, you can do in the metaverse.
Well, you can say that, but then what does that really mean? I don't know that
Well, but
that's
at
really
least that's like
clear.
a mental model I can have. If I have never used a computer and I say, "Hey, what's the metaverse?" and you're like, "Well, you put on this headset and you're transported to a different world where you can, do all this stuff except you're just doing it in a digital place."
Yeah, that maybe works, but okay.
But even if it does, it's certainly better than explaining NFTs or crypto or like what's the blockchain. Like that's a very difficult mental model.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um,
I think, can
but
I
but
can I interject something before you go on?
yeah, sure.
I think some of these mental model ideas also, this is where the whole generational differences will come in,
Huge,
because I
huge.
think it's likely easier for younger people to understand the mental model of the metaverse than it is for people. Oh, and I don't know what that age break would be, but it's going to be, people who, and we talk about, and then, in fact, Guthrie, I was just reading the latest research on changes in the adolescent brains, because you and I talk about this theory a lot. Uh, and actually, now there's more evidence of it. So, but anyway, I digress way too much. So, if when you hit adolescence, if when you hit puberty, you had experienced spending significant time and being immersed in digital anything, then I think the mental model of the metaverse, as you just described it, will be somewhat easy to grasp. However, if you are of a generation where when you hit puberty, you were not immersed in a digital world of any kind because it didn't exist, I think the mental model of a metaverse is going to be more difficult. So I'll just mention that.
Okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of meta models about video games. Second Life happened like
Right, but
12
this
years
is
ago.
but this is what I'm saying. If you're past a certain age, there was no video games, there was no Second Life
No, I
before
understand,
puberty.
but there's been 10 years of being exposed and learning about the mental model of a video game. Like you can go to someone who
Yeah, yeah,
maybe okay,
you'd be
fine.
surprised. All right, keep going.
So part of I think the problem then, the next problem that needs to be solved is fundamentally when you are doing like a Facebook, okay, Web 2.0, the only thing that really matters is just being able to easily communicate between people. As long as that's easy, the humans fill in the rest. Much like, a movie is at 24 frames per second. Our eyes sort of fill in the rest to make it look smooth. Our brain does that.
Yeah,
So we have the system, the most terrible message boards out in the 90s or whatever. It wasn't sleek or pretty, But it didn't, as long as I could write something easily and someone could read it easily and respond to me, that's really all you needed.
Yeah.
And the mental model did not assume anything beyond that.
Okay.
Once you start getting into metaverse stuff, that is, now it's just like real life except digital. There's a whole slew of invisible mental models that come along with that that are
Like what?
so much more complicated. I'll give you an example.
Yes.
So, I read an article about a woman who, entered, the metaverse and walked around for a little bit and was basically immediately harassed. And, people were sort of grabbing her in the metaverse. That doesn't happen in real life for most people most of the
Well,
time.
it happens more than any of us like to admit.
Sure, but this happened within like seconds of her joining the
Right.
circle. You
Right.
know, it's not like 50% of the time walking down the street you're being physically assaulted. So there are just some assumptions about being alone, being safe, like having normal interactions with people, being able to call 911, and the just that sort of basic core tenets that are actually really, really difficult to implement. And
Well, now
there
that's
are
oh,
there are just a lot of assumptions that right out of
yeah.
the gate, Web 3.0 is in a lot of trouble when it comes to the mental model of the way things are supposed to work and supposed to behave. I'm not even talking about the technical aspects of
No, there's an
it working.
interesting thing there. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It actually makes me very sad that that would happen, but it doesn't surprise me. But
Can you be surprised?
no, I'm not surprised because okay, now I have a
It
couple
happens
things
in
I have.
video games all the time too.
Now I have to say. Now I have a couple things I have to talk about. So first of all, what's interesting about uh, about the assumed mental model here, then I don't know if this can anything can be done about this in terms of design or user experience. When I go into a physical space, okay,
Hmm.
it is definitely possible for me to go into a place, uh, whether that be into a strange city, into a particular neighborhood, into a particular restaurant or store or something, where I didn't realize that my safety was at risk. Right? I It becomes apparent once I'm in the environment that I I thought this was going to be safe or I wouldn't have done it, but it is not safe. I mean that happens in the real world. But we also have a fair amount of usually we have a fair amount of control over that, right? We don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to go to some place I don't know at all. And it might be extremely dangerous and I don't know. And I'm not going to check it out. And I'm just going to show up. I mean, some people do that, but a lot of people don't do that, right? They think about where they're going and whether it's safe. They think about that. They make a decision. Now, there's some people that can't, like, first responders or journalists that find themselves, being sent to a war zone or something. But for the rest of us on a day-to-day basis, we can usually take some precautions. But if we're talking about, what level of control and advance notice, right? Because these aren't real spaces, because the safety of the space can change in an instant based on all kinds of things like who happens to show up. That's that changes that changes the risk, and I think that's really big issue. I also, and so that's one thing. I agree with you. And I think the whole mental model thing around that is interesting and disastrous, potentially disastrous. No, seriously, it is. But the other part of it is that, I've had periodically arguments with people, especially, well, I'll just say with people, about whether the humans are progressing. We're getting better, we're getting more civilized, we're getting more empathetic, we're getting over time. A viewpoint that I don't agree with at all. I am an absolute, I guess you could say pessimist. I would say more realist about this. Unfortunately, we bring all of our humanity into these virtual spaces, which is good things and bad things. Which is, I mean, we're humans, and unfortunately, often we don't behave in particularly good ways. So I don't know. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? And are we going to get to is this going to be the thing like has happened with the internet, in which the organizations and companies that are sponsoring the platforms just go, oh, we're just the platform. We can't control what people do. We got ethical issues here, Guthrie, and you're the ethical person.
Yeah. So this is a big problem with Web 3.0. Let's move on. So that was the meta part. Let's move
You're
on.
getting me really sad.
Thank you. Let's move on to the crypto part.
We haven't solved it. All right, fine, move on.
The crypto part. There,
Yeah,
somehow that blockchain will be associated and NFTs and all this stuff.
yeah.
The
With
mental
the
model.
metaverse, you mean?
Yeah,
Or just
sure.
in general, it's all part of Web
All of it.
3.0.
All of it.
Okay, okay.
Um, it is.
The mental model is really kind of mind blowing. Are we going to be able
It's really hard. And
to
let's
get
so
it?
let's just talk about Bitcoin. Okay.
Okay,
The mental model, I suppose, is somewhat simple. If you don't actually know what it is, you just say it's like money, but it's digital. Okay. So
okay.
then I say, okay, so it's like my bank account.
Right.
And
And
they
then you
say,
say
well, no, not really, because there is no central
location.
location that keeps a record of the bank. It's
Right,
on the
right.
chain, and everyone has a record of what everyone else does. The actual like hurdles that a normal person has to overcome is pretty extreme. And
To
this is
understand the
even
mental model.
no to be able to use it.
Yes.
And
Oh,
this is
yes.
and this is even beyond. We'll just scoot right over. What happens if countries decide to start regulating it as a security, and then you have more steps, and it gets even more complicated. I mean, right now, if I want to buy a book from you, okay, there's a slew of ways I could do it. I can send money on PayPal, Venmo, or I can write you a check, or I can pay you in cash, all of which are simple, relatively simple in my life. I have a mental model for doing such things. I understand how money transfers. So if I want to send it to you in Bitcoin, everyone has to be in the system already. And getting in the system is not particularly easy. Now, some might say getting a bank account is not particularly easy too. You need a home address, and you need a form of identification, and you need X and Y and Z, and but that's a mental model that most people already have.
Well, that some people have. There are actually huge numbers of people that do not. They may have the mental model of a bank account, but they don't have a bank
Have a
account.
bank account, right? And so
Okay, but I have a
If
question
it
for you.
if the web if it's social media at least was solving or thinking it was solving a problem, which was people need an easier way to communicate, and we have a solution for that. Um, part of the problem is there's not necessarily a super easy way. If you're going to have like a wallet, right, and you forget your password, your money's just gone forever.
All right, all right.
That's a
I,
problem.
yeah, I understand. I think there is a problem, but I want to separate the technology problem from the mental model problem.
It's good.
Al- Although in this case they might be joined. But I want you to imagine going way back in time
This is true. It's a good
before
point.
there was money.
Oh, that's a little further than I was going to go back.
Before there was money. You know,
I
the
don't think. I think there
idea.
was always money.
No, it used to be. I love the book. What's the book?
I mean, they used
Oh,
salt as money, but that was just money with extra steps.
there was. They did use salt with money. They used shells with money. There's this. What's the book about? Oh, I Homo sapiens Uval. Anyway, he does a great job of
I
explaining,
think what you mean
the
is
origins
before
of money
currency.
before currency. But even there was a point where you didn't take a commodity like salt, um, and everybody kind of agreed that that was a useful commodity. You literally bartered one item for another. If I want
That's
that
fine.
donkey that you have, I have to figure out not a currency that we all agree has value because I can take it and I can trade it to someone else. But I
Yes, you
had
had a currency with each individual
each
person you traded.
individual transaction had its own
Sure,
currency.
sure.
Um, and so we had to talk each other into it's okay. We're going to use salt, you know, it, and it's okay. You'll be able to trade that salt. That mental model was different. And there are also, mental models
Yeah,
about
I think that took like 2,000 years, though.
exactly. And then, and mental models about communication, like we can communicate by writing down these little things on uh, pig bladders with a mark. That's a way we can communicate. It's like, no, we communicate by telling and memorizing stories. That's how we communicate. So I think there have been times when we've made pretty major shifts in mental models, but there it can be difficult and it can take a really long time. I agree with that. I think the amount of time it takes to get a new mental model has, it's shortened over the eons that we've been on the planet.
Yes, but I think the problem is for this upcoming Web 3.0,
Yeah.
to summarize, it's a complex mental model, and that generally takes more time.
Yeah.
And also, what's the problem that I have as a person that I need to solve that this helps me solve? Like when Zoom happened, okay, people there were lots of people who are not very technologically savvy who had trouble with Zoom and didn't like it and blah 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 and were always on mute and all the jokes and stuff. But at least it was solving a problem, which was there's a pandemic and I need to be on this meeting. And so people, they gritted their teeth and they figured it out and they figured out how to do the thing and the software and blah blah blah. But what is the problem that Web3 is solving that is going to push me, as a normal person to really understand what an NFT is and to like use these things, you know? Um, at the moment,
Mm.
the underlying thing has been, well, you can make money doing it because the asset appreciates, but that's not really a problem. That's not,
That's
that's,
interesting. It's interesting your point.
I guess you could say maybe it's like ease of communication, but I don't
well,
know.
yeah, I don't know. It's almost like that the venture capital has a problem. They have a lot of money and there's nowhere to spend it, and so they're thinking up ways to new things to do. But
Why go through the problem of figuring out things to sell in real life when we can just make up things and sell them in fake life? The
uh,
profit margins are amazing. You
right,
don't
right,
even have to.
right. So I think that's a really interesting question. Is is this really so? You
It's a
know,
solution in search of a problem.
right? Which we we as humans, or at least profit making companies, are always very interested in, you know, build it and they will come, or we can create the need. We'll 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 create it and then we'll make people realize how much they need it. But yeah, it may not be enough. It may not truly serve a need. Um, it may not be a better way to do. I guess you could look at it, Guthrie, and I don't know if this is accurate or not. Perhaps the things that will really take off and become, X.O, um, are the things that we have been doing anyway, but this allows us to do it better, faster, deeper. I mean, if you look at, Web 1.0 and 2.0, that's certainly true for all of those technologies. We wanted to communicate with each other faster, better. We wanted to uh, purchase things, in besides having to go to a store. As you said, we wanted to attend meetings without having to do it in person. Attending meetings, purchasing things, we connecting with other people. Those are things we were already doing. The technology that was really popular, became really popular, was the ones that allowed us to do it better or easier.
But that was a generational jump. And I don't know that. I
You
don't
don't
know.
have you don't have a basic human need to be in the metaverse, or to deal in NFTs or crypto blockchain.
I
Basic
mean,
human need for blockchain.
yes, but, is it, if all you're telling me is that it's just a better way to do video, just like three-dimensional video conferencing. That's cool. I like that. But I think I'm missing something.
So, okay. So, I have a question for you. You
Hmm.
get a phone call. Do people get phone calls anymore?
I get
Your
spam calls. My
All right.
car's extended warranty is expiring.
You get a text message from uh, Meta,
Uh-huh.
and they say, "Guthrie, come help us. How can we make this really, really popular?"
Well, it's gonna be, they own
Well,
Facebook. It's gonna be popular. They like, one quarter of the earth is their user base.
no, they could fall flat on their face. There's lots of
Yeah,
companies that
that's
used to
fair.
be big in a space that aren't there anymore. Do you, what could they? Is there any deep human need that the current plans for the metaverse would tap into?
Yes,
Do
I
you
have
want to
to.
do you want to share that, or you're not ready? Because I just asked you that I asked you that out of nowhere.
If they could really nail not being harassed on the internet, I'm serious. If they could make a space
but
that
but
wasn't a terrible place to be online, maybe.
but you kind of implied earlier that it was the opposite, that they had created a place where it was really easy to be harassed, easier than before.
And scammed. Don't underestimate scamming viruses. You're in the metaverse and someone's like, "Hey, here's a free picture," and you're
So
like,
you're
"Cool," and then
saying
your
if
computer's
the, if
it has a
something about the
teeth exam on.
metaverse felt extremely safe, that would be a a
Look,
power use.
look. The Western modern banking system works because of 1,200 years of building up trust and standards and
Yes,
backups
I
and
agree.
verifications.
Yes,
And the FDIC insured and the
yes,
whole thing.
yes.
And even up in the 30s, there was a problem with everyone putting their, uh,
1930s, yes,
yeah, in the US,
yes.
they didn't want to use
And
the
even with that,
bank.
yeah,
So so it took a long time for people. That's why they have the FDIC and the insurance, and to
yeah,
get your money if the bank falls and all that stuff.
yeah.
So like it's got to be foolproof 99.9999% of the time. And right now I think it's foolproof like 30% of the time.
But but what I hear you say is one possible use case. If you can make the case, which I'm not sure you could, but if you could make the case that for whatever reasons the metaverse is safer, or blockchain is safer, or NFTs is
Sure.
safe.
Yeah.
Safety right now is something that we crave, and we aren't definitely, we're not sure we have that in the digital world.
Okay, well that'll be part 3 then. We'll do safety as part 3.
I didn't know we were going to have a part 3.
Well, we weren't, but we didn't get through it in part 2, so
Okay, all right. So we're going to do a Web 3.0 dot 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 is safety the master use case.
yeah.
Okay. Or is there, and I guess this gives us a week in between our broadcasts here to think of maybe there's another good
Well,
use case.
the other use case I'll say is the use case that's listed is that people will be able to have all kinds of cool experiences that
That's
don't
not
actually exist in the real
that's
world,
not
and they'll
enough of
want
a
to
use
go.
case. I don't think that's enough.
Maybe people go on roller coasters for no other reason than because it's fun. So
Yes, but how many people go on roller coasters?
a lot.
I would like to know. Can you do some research on the percent? Because it's not
No.
the same as the percentage
Not
of
gonna do
people that use the monetary system
that.
or go online.
Okay. Well,
All
on
right.
that,
Before we leave,
there you go. See, there you go.
yeah, I'm interested in this too. So we will explore safety as the master use case of the metaverse, the MetaMaster, in our next, and other possible use cases in our next broadcast. But before we go,
Silly.
Guthrie, what?
It's also silly.
It's not
You
silly.
should just go back to caves and sticks.
Okay, yeah, you're in a good mood today. All right, before we go, however, there's some things we need to say, which is if you
Mhm.
have ideas about topics for our podcast, for this live streaming, which is also our podcast, please let us know. And You can always reach us at, go ahead, Guthrie,
info@theteamw.com.
info@theteamw.com. And I also want to say that we have two behavioral design immersive courses coming up, one in April, one in July. If you're interested, I guess, how do we get them information on that? They can go to our website and we have information on that there, which is www.theteamw.com.
It's just theteamw.com. www will work, but there's no need.
Okay, theteamw.com.
Teamw.com.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
http://theteamw.com.
Oh, make fun of me now. Oh no, you're not
That's
making fun.
that is
That
the
is the,
official
oh, that's the
full
URL.
link.
Gotcha.
That's the official full link. Yes,
Thank
there
you.
is no www.
Any other announcements we have for people?
We're starting to book conferences again.
We are.
Don't do it this month. Don't do it in June. But
if you have something,
unless there's another crazy COVID variant wave, blah blah blah.
And if you want us to come speak at your conference,
yeah, in person, we're starting to look at late summer, fall dates.
Yeah, let us know. We'd be interested.
Hopefully, like I said, if as long as there's not another crazy wave, hopefully
I'd like to go somewhere.
Things will be safe enough
I would like
to get back to that.
I would like to do some traveling.
But there might be the next, like I said, the COVID wave that turns everyone into giant cockroaches or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope not. Okay, thank you, Guthrie, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.